turning the tables. Liu knew Bao and his men were dangerous fighters. If it came to a head-on clash, victory wasn't certain. So Liu devised a trap. First, he went to Captain Li, telling him this whole hijacking was Bao's idea. He killed the engineer and the others. It was all him. Even your old friend, second mate Wang Yongbo, was murdered by Bao. This hit Captain Li hard. Wang had been his close friend for years. He had even burned paper offerings for him after his death. Now, with grief and anger in his heart, and his own life on the line, Li agreed to side with Liu. Next, Liu brought on two men who had long wanted to prove themselves, Kui Yong and Duan Zhifei. He told them plainly, whether you can join us depends on your performance tonight. Liu then tricked Bao. He convinced him that Captain Li wanted to switch sides, and asked Bao to hand over his knife for safety. Bao, unsuspecting, complied. Liu also sent him to fetch Kui Yong, setting the trap in motion. On deck, Bao approached Kui, unarmed. That's when Kui, armed with a hidden blade, struck. From the other side, Captain Li joined in. Bao was stabbed several times in the stomach. Bao, unsuspecting, complied. Waiting nearby, rushed in to finish the attack. Bleeding badly, Bao staggered to the edge and jumped into the sea. Before he vanished beneath the waves, he shouted toward his cabin, "Everyone, come out!" But no one dared move. His closest allies, Fog, Frong, Xi, and Dai Fushen, realized there was no escape. One after another, they leapt into the sea themselves. The old sailor, Bao Baocheng, who had once said losing a man at sea was no big deal, was dragged out next. He too was forced overboard. The Inner Mongolian faction was wiped out. Blood for blood with Baogang. The ship's tense atmosphere broke into something wild, almost celebratory. Some even shouted in triumph. Kui, covered in blood, smeared it across his face and cried out, "I've shed blood! I've shed blood!" But Liu wasn't finished. He still spastic others of siding with Bao. The two men who had sent money into his girlfriend's account, Shan Guoxi and Qiu Ronghua, were next. Under some flimsy excuse, they were called out of their cabins. The group descended on them like wolves, sobbing until they were forced into the sea. The ship's numbers were dwindling fast. What had started as 33 men at sea was collapsing into a handful of survivors, most of them killers. The sinking ship. After the bloody infighting, the men were exhausted. They cleaned the deck as best they could and quickly fell asleep. But just before dawn, Captain Li went to the restroom and noticed something strange. The ship's engine speed had suddenly dropped, from 980 down to 700. Alarmed, he checked and discovered the unthinkable. The main valve at the bottom of the ship had been opened. Water was flooding into the engine room. The vessel was losing power. It began to list dangerously. The Lurongyu 2682 was on the verge of sinking. Only a few men knew where that valve was. The chief engineer, Wen Du, had known, but he was already dead. That left just one possibility. Wang Yanlang, the chief mechanic. He was missing. Most likely, after witnessing so much slaughter, he had snapped. Perhaps he wanted revenge, or maybe he simply couldn't see a way out. By opening the valve, he had chosen to take everyone down with him. With the ship in crisis, Veld and Captain Li had no choice but to call for help. They sent out a distress signal and ordered everyone to bail water. They scrambled to tie together empty barrels, planks, and anything that could float, preparing for the worst. A desperate escape amid the chaos. 4 men, First Mate Fu Yizhong, along with Song Guchang, Gong Xuejun, and Ding Yuming, saw their chance. They secretly built a makeshift raft, grabbed supplies, and slipped into life vests. For a moment, it looked like they might get away. But soon, the others spotted them drifting about 30 feet from the ship. Liu Gai shouted from the deck, furious, "Get back here, all of you!" Fu shouted back, We're not coming back. You're hiding knives on the lifeboats. You'll just kill us. He wasn't wrong. Given Liu's record, their lives would have been in grave danger if they stayed. But the sea wasn't on their side. The current began pushing the raft back toward the ship. Panic swept the deck. Captain Lee ordered the men to grab squid fishing weights, heavy iron sinkers, and hurl them down. Dozens of iron blocks rained onto the raft. The foremen screamed, cursed, and begged for mercy. But no mercy came. The raft shattered under the assault. Fu, Gong, and Ding abandoned it, swimming desperately into the open sea. Song, injured and terrified, stayed close to the ship, pleading for his life. The others knew the truth. In open water, the swimmers wouldn't last long. Blood was already in the water, and sharks would soon follow. Song was dragged back on board. Trembling, he begged over and over, "Please don't kill me. Please, let me leave." Captain Lee leaned toward Liu and whispered, "Rescue is coming." Xiang and Zhao still haven't shed blood. Maybe let them handle it. Liu turned to Xiang Lishan and Zhao Mucheng. "It's up to you now." Xiang grabbed the knife and prepared to stab Song, but Liu stopped him. "No stabbing, just throw him overboard." They stripped off Song's life vest, tied heavy iron sinkers to his body, and pushed him into the sea. By then, only 11 men remained on the ship. Every one of them was now guilty of murder. Landfall. By late July 2011, the Lurongyu 2682 was drifting helplessly in the Pacific. After sending out a distress call, international rescue efforts were mobilized. On July 25th, east of the Sea of Japan, the Chinese government coordinated with Japan's Coast Guard. Surveillance planes flew over the waters until finally they spotted the missing vessel. They marked the exact coordinates, and soon after, rescue ships were dispatched. On July 29th, China's own fishery patrol ship, the China Fishery Administration Vessel 118, located the stricken Lurongyu 2682 and began towing it back home. On August 12th, after weeks at sea, the blood-soaked vessel finally returned to Shidao port, the same place that had departed 8 months earlier. Rain poured down as armed police stood waiting on shore. One by one, the 11 surviving men were led off the ship, each into a separate police vehicle. They were immediately taken away for individual interrogations. The next day, authorities announced what many had feared. A major crime had taken place aboard the fishing vessel. The truth surfaces. At first, the 11 men tried to stick to a single story. They claimed Bao Dai and his followers had hijacked the ship and fled to Japan, killing the others along the way. They insisted they were innocent survivors, but forensic evidence told another story. Investigators found blood spatter throughout the ship. DNA tests tied the stains to the missing crew members. Piece by piece, the lies unraveled. The youngest among them, Huang Jinbo, was the first to break. On board, he had betrayed others to save himself. Now, in custody, he confessed everything, hoping to reduce his sentence by claiming voluntary surrender. In November 2012, the case finally went to trial in Weihai, Guangdong Province. On July 19, 2013, the court delivered its verdict. What had happened aboard the Lurongyu 2682 shocked the world. 33 men had sailed out, but 22 were dead. 5 were sentenced to death. The survival rate was less than 20%.
Reflections. I first heard about this case on a warm autumn night in 2017, when a friend told me the story. Even in the heat, I felt chills down my back as I listened. On that ship, in such a closed and isolated world, Liu Guide and the others committed crimes too terrible to put into words. Yes, the fishing company had tricked them with cruel contracts. Yes, Captain Lee and his officers treated the men harshly. But none of that could justify what followed. Nothing could excuse the brutal slaughter of their fellow sailors. Among the victims were ordinary men with simple dreams. Wang Pen, who had promised his mother they would have 8 dishes of meat for New Year's dinner. Wendu, who never got the chance to call his wife before their daughter's first birthday. Ma Yu Chao, the young college graduate who had gone to sea for the first time. Full of hope to bring home 100,000 yuan. They were sons, husbands, fathers, men carrying the hopes of their family. Yet in the end, their bodies were lost to the ocean, leaving nothing but grief. To the victims' families, Liu and the others were monsters, unforgivable. But it's important to remember, when these men first boarded the ship, they too carried dreams. Like the others, they wanted to work, to earn money, to return home with pride. What changed them? In the brutal environment of the open sea, under constant exhaustion and injustice, something inside them cracked. When one man crossed the line, when one hand raised a knife, the others followed. Fear, rage, and survival instinct stripped away their humanity. Even Liu Guide, remembered by friends as generous and filial, was consumed. At first, he wasn't the one to suggest mutiny or violence. But once he gained power, the ability to decide who lived and who died, desire and brutality swallowed him whole. This is the terrifying part of human nature. From a distance, we may think we would never do such things. But placed in that same desperate, lawless world, would we truly hold on to reason and compassion? Or would we, too, fall into the abyss? If only the company hadn't cheated them. If only there had been more kindness and solidarity on board. If only someone had stopped after the first killing, choosing to restrain instead of destroy. Perhaps the Lurongyu 2682 would have returned safely, greeted by families waiting eagerly on the shore. Instead, it became a ghost ship, remembered for one of the most shocking maritime tragedies in modern Chinese history. And so, the lesson remains: hold on to your humanity. Cherish kindness. Never forget that, beneath the storms of life, what keeps us afloat is not just survival, but compassion.